Hey Wade, this is Bill with KeystoneWeapon.com, and I saw your question online. That's a great way to post it. We can see a video, we know what's going on, because everybody's verbiage is sometimes a little bit different. And what you were describing on your gun was a little bit of pre-travel. And these two guns right here, these are both Rock Island Armory guns. This is a 9mm and a 10mm. There goes my phone, just like always. That's awesome. But what I wanted to show you is what you're experiencing is take up, right? So if I cock the hammer on this gun, I have a little bit of take up. Especially once I put that grip safety in, you can see I have a little bit of take up on this gun, which it is empty. I have a little bit of take up, and then the gun breaks. Now on my 9mm, I have no take up at all. This gun has an extremely minimal amount of take up, and then the trigger breaks. That is actually something that is set. Now these are, you notice that these triggers are a little different. These are polymer STI triggers. Unfortunately I don't have one out of the gun right now, but on a lot of the like Rock Island triggers or on a lot of aftermarket triggers, there's a setting. Now this is just a GI trigger and it does not have that setting. But what you would notice is that right here in this little area right here, there would be these little tabs that can be bent out. And all that they do is these tabs get bent out and they bump against the front of the frame. So that would actually get bumped against the front of the frame. And essentially the more you bend them out, the farther it pulls your trigger back so that it will not spring forward all the way. And that's what's known as the take up in your gun. As far as Rock Island Armory guns go, or a lot of other 1911s for that matter, that's how they come. They're a basic setup. You know, that amount of pre-travel doesn't affect your trigger control or anything like that. It's something that I actually kind of like a little bit on some of my guns. You can see this is a custom trigger, and I actually have it set up like that because I like a little bit of slack before it breaks nice and clean. As long as my sear breaks clean, that's the most important thing for my trigger control. I could set this up where it has absolutely no take up, and I have some guns that are like that depending on the shooting sport that I'm doing, or if I'm going to use it for defensive uses. I like a little bit of take up because I like to get my finger on that trigger, pull it to where it stops, relax, breathe, and take that shot, like for bullseye, for instance. So that amount of take up that you're seeing is correct. Now, some people are saying that there's adjustment screws and things like that. They're probably referring to this screw on the inside here. That has nothing to do with pre-travel or take up or anything like that. All that screw does is controls your over travel. So that screw right there, and what the hell, I'll draw on my gun, I don't care. That screw that's right in there goes right up to and bumps into the magazine release. So it allows it to only go back to a certain point. You can see that once my trigger goes to a certain point, it won't go any farther. On this one, the pre-travel's set pretty tight. So you'll see it pulls back and it will not cushion back any farther. On this one, it's probably not as good. I pull it back and I can actually continue to pull the trigger back a little bit. That's what that screw does. It has nothing to do with adjusting trigger weights or anything. As far as lightening your trigger, a 5.5 pound trigger is a pretty typical 1911 trigger for Rock Island Armory. That's all going to be done in your sear spring here. This left-hand leaf is what's going to control your trigger bar tension. The center leaf is going to control your disconnect. And this right leaf is what's going to control the spring in your beaver tail grip safety. Now you don't want to just go bending this all willy-nilly without knowing what you're doing, because if you take this too light and you have a heavier trigger, like a steel trigger, like one that would be in a factory gun, like even this one, this is out of a double stack. This is a pretty heavy trigger, even though it's skeletonized. These triggers weigh 1/10 as much as this trigger does. And the reason that that's important is because this can fire under inertia. So just the act of that slide slamming forward can actually bounce this trigger, which is why a little bit of slack is a decent thing. It can actually bounce this trigger and you'll get runaways where you'll get pop, 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 where you can depress the trigger, and just the inertia of the slide going back and forth, if this is too light, if there's not enough tension essentially on this leftmost leg, it can actually bounce it. With all that being said, a little bit of take up is pretty typical. A little bit of side to side movement is a little typical, and a little bit of up and down movement. You have to keep in mind that these aren't custom guns. They're made out of millions of parts that are all fit together and fit together to work in a combat effective way. So you want, there are going to have a little bit of looseness and stuff like that in the parts, but their sear and hammer tolerances are actually very good, which is why a lot of people claim that Rock Island Armory has very good triggers. You can work your trigger however you want to. It will void the warranty if you don't have the guys in Nevada do it. So if you take it to a gunsmith, they can super easily lighten up your trigger, adjust that take up, or at least get back maybe by putting an aftermarket trigger in that has the proper settings on it. And some of the new Rock Island triggers do have it. To get rid of some of that take up, or pre-travel if you wish. However, I recommend taking it out and shooting it. You really may find it's not that big of a deal. And if you do want to have it worked on and want to have it warrantied, just have the guys in Nevada take a look at it. But keep in mind they're at SHOT Show right now, and this is the busiest time of year to have warranty work or any kind of aftermarket work done by them. Hopefully this helps, and take care, shoot your weapon, enjoy it, and stay classy.